Is a music production or audio engineering degree worth it? What are the pros and cons of going to school versus independent study? So I know that you want to do music and you see it as way more than a hobby for yourself. You're passionate about it, you see it in your future, and you would love to make a living doing what you love. So you've most likely asked yourself, should I go to school for this? Should I get a degree in music production? Should I get a degree in audio engineering? Hey yo, it's Alex from Metamind Music, and with this channel, it's my mission to help musicians produce themselves by developing their mindset, expanding their creativity, and connecting to their inner artist in a deeper way. I'll be sharing videos, tips, and tricks, and all sorts of creative strategies and mindset stuff, and everything under the sun, and answering specific questions just like this video. All right, so let's discover this question together of should you go to school for music production and audio engineering? And in my situation, I've actually gone to school for audio engineering, and I have also taken many online courses for mixing, music production, for my software Ableton. So I've got a little bit of perspective from both sides. And this is a preface. This is all my opinion from my own journey, my path. So it's 100% biased, but I just want to offer you my perspective on what I think the landscape is like in today's day and age. But always keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and only you will be able to make the best decision for your own path. All right, so before we jump in, I'll give you a quick little rundown of my path. I've always been into music. I was like a musical child. I played piano, violin, got lessons for those, didn't really dig it until I found the guitar. So after high school, I went to university for science. Quickly realized I didn't want to do that as a career. So then I segued to business. And after 2.5 years of university, I quickly realized that I want to do music. Music was the only thing that I was always thinking about. I was passionate about it. I was skilled at it. So I was like 100% convinced that I have to do music. So I left university and I went to school for audio engineering. And before going to school for recording, I'd always been into recording, but I'd never really taken it super seriously. So I decided to invest and really learn the ins and outs of the recording world. And then after I went to school for audio engineering, I did learn a lot, but I actually had a lot of things that I didn't learn that I had to learn on my own, which I'll get into a little bit later in this video. All that to say that as I kept going after school, I had trouble finding a job. I tried to freelance my services. I worked with a friend in a studio for a bit. That didn't work out. And over the years, I decided to take some online courses for mixing, for production, and then got back into freelancing my services and eventually doing what I'm doing now, recording bands, freelancing my services, teaching online, all this stuff. And that kind of sums up my journey. So I've kind of experienced a little bit of everything, and I feel like it definitely translates some of the pros and cons for you so you can make the best decision. All right, so the number one thing I want to communicate with you is that in this business, in the audio industry, in the music industry, going to school is 100% not a requirement, okay? You do not need to go to school to make it in this industry. It's an absolute not requirement. The only thing that matters in this industry is results, all right? Can you deliver results? Do you have a portfolio of work? And from my own experience, I can tell you that every single gig that I have scored, whether it's producing music for a YouTube channel, recording a band, collaborating with an artist, throughout all of these gigs and different facets of the music industry, no one has ever asked for my credentials or if I went to school. Straight up. Not one. Okay? Nobody cares about your credentials. So if you're thinking about going to school just for the credentials, I would maybe question that plan. So let's talk about what really matters if you want to freelance your services, run a studio, build a business as an artist, musician, session player, whatever it is. What actually matters is, are you good? Do you have a professional work ethic? Do you have proven results, so a portfolio of your work? And what relationships do you have? And ultimately, do you understand your craft? Okay, are you easy to work with? Who do you know? All these kinds of things are magnitudes more important than whatever credentials you may have. And most people I have interfaced with and talked to in the industry actually have not gotten any formal training for what they're doing, whether it be music production, audio engineering, mixing, or being professional artists. They didn't learn what they learned by going to school. So they either learned it by their own independent studies or through the more traditional apprenticeship path, where you would go to a studio and really just beg for a position to like clean toilets and do all the jobs that nobody wants to do, and be sort of a fly on the wall for many sessions and learn the tricks of the trade by kind of being a fly on the wall and sitting in on those sessions. All right, and I want to be honest, when I went to school for audio engineering, I was still quite young and I didn't have a really clear vision of what my goal was for a career. So as I went to school, which was not cheap by the way, I spent $10,000 for a 6-month super intensive program, and I did learn a lot. I gained tons of experience. However, since I didn't have a clear vision of where I wanted to go, I will admit that I did not take advantage of the experience to its fullest. I didn't really develop a work ethic. I had a so-so portfolio after graduating from the program, but the thing is, I had all of this knowledge, but no professional work ethic or portfolio of awesome work that I have finished while going through the program. So once I graduated from that program, I was kind of starting at zero again, just with an enhanced understanding of my craft. So I would actually, before really thinking about going to school, you really want to decide, where do you want to end up in your career? Do you want to be a music producer and work with other artists? Do you want to be a music producer and just create your own music and build a brand and a business as an artist? Do you want to be a mixing engineer? Do you want to actually run a studio? You really want to be clear on what you want to achieve and where you want to go before you think of the pathway to get there. And beyond like a 6-month extensive course, there are like full degrees for music production that you can enroll in, but the tuition for these schools can be anywhere from like $30,000 to $80,000. And unless you have $80,000 lying around, you're most likely going to have to go in debt just to go through these schools. And it is my personal opinion that this is a waste of money. All right, that might be a dramatic opinion, but hear me out. This is going to segue into our next section of this conversation, but there are so many better uses for that amount of money that you could find in today's date and age. It might have been different 10 to 15 years ago, but let's be real. And I'll be honest, in today's day and age, I have learned probably just as much, if not more, through online courses than I have going to school for audio engineering. Okay, and when I went to school, I learned a lot of the basics. I mastered the fundamentals. I got some hands-on experience. I met some cool people. All of that stuff is super valuable, and I would never change the path I took. But I have to be honest that taking online courses after going to school and learning kind of more independently, I've actually gained probably more in-depth knowledge. I've probably gained more value from those online courses because I got to interact with the course creators directly, and I got some really specialized knowledge for the things that I was passionate about. And I was maybe in a more mature headspace to extract the most value out of those experiences because I took it a little bit later in my life. But I will have to say that some of the online courses today would rival what you learn in a more traditional school setting, if not surpass it, because what is possible with online coaching and interacting with other students online can really skyrocket your progress in ways that might have not been possible in a more traditional setting. All right, so let's talk about online courses. And I think online courses are a gem in today's day and age. And of course, I'm biased, but I have taken many online courses for mixing, for music production, for specific training relative to my software Ableton, and I have to say that some are better than others, but you can get super specialized training from somebody who has been in the industry or someone who's doing exactly what you want to do with your career and extract knowledge from their experience and really skyrocket your knowledge, skyrocket your craft in ways that have never been possible before. So I've taken courses such as the Full Stack Producer from Hardcore Music Studio, where there was some overlap with what I had already learned in audio engineering school. However, I went in depth into the strategy of that specific teacher and their style of how they produced actual pro records that are on top level label releases. And I learned like the tracking techniques, editing techniques, and mixing techniques of that engineer, and getting a glimpse into that process and taking it at your own pace and having reference material to practice with really skyrocketed my mixing skills, which was something that wasn't really covered in depth with my audio engineering program. I also took in-depth training for my software Ableton because I'd learned how to use Pro Tools with my audio engineering course, which is the kind of standard. If you go into a professional studio, they'll typically be using Pro Tools. However, once I discovered Ableton, and I've always been a little bit more passionate about producing my own music and being creative in the studio as opposed to hiring out my services or working with other bands. Once I discovered Ableton, I realized that this was the perfect DAW for me, and I decided to just invest in a course that goes A to Z covering the features of Ableton and a few workflow techniques for mixing and producing music in Ableton. And just by taking that investment, it took me maybe 2 to 3 months to really get an in-depth understanding of the software. So a simple investment like that can really skyrocket your progress in any direction. So I've also taken this other course called The Leap, which is more of a music production course and creativity course. And I have to say that this has really skyrocketed my personal work ethic and the way I look at creativity. So all this to say is that investing in online courses, investing in yourself, in your own training, in being able to learn at your own pace and implement this stuff on your own really starts to build a skill set that might be different from following a schedule or following a pre-laid path in a traditional school. And for a quick comparison, if you're looking at spending $50,000 to $80,000 or even $10,000 to $30,000 on a traditional music production or audio engineering school, if you would take that same amount of investment and invest it in online courses, you would probably get magnitudes more value. You could get courses from like the Recording Revolution, Pro Audiophiles, Audio Issues, Six Figure Home Studio to learn how to run your business. You could go to Hardcore Music Studio if you're into metal and hard rock. You could get all sorts of awesome courses and have enough money left over to invest in some nice gear to set up your studio, and still have money left over to maybe cover your expenses for the next 6 months. So you really have to think about what would be the best investment for you. And you could take a different path other than going to school or taking some online training for music production and audio engineering. You could simply just start your own studio. So if you're a musician and music producer, you could actually just start working on your own projects and start finishing more and more tracks and build a portfolio of work. You could then also start your own studio and start freelancing your services to local bands, collaborating with other artists, or even collaborating with people online. And the best part about doing it this way is that you have no excuse not to start now, and you don't have to really have a huge sum of money to invest in training. And you can figure out a lot of stuff out on your own, especially in today's day and age with YouTube and maybe a few other friends or mentors that are on the same path as you. Another huge plus to going about it this way, which I learned a little bit later in my path, is that you're going to build the skills of building relationships and being an entrepreneur. So finding places where you can add value and solve problems with your skill set in your field. And I would argue that entrepreneurial skills are actually just as important as recording, music production, mixing skills in today's day and age, because in today's world, we have so much opportunity that was actually never available in the past, as where you could start your own business and be your own entrepreneur without needing anybody else. How cool is that? The only caveat with that is you have to learn the skills of running a business and marketing your business and networking with other people, building relationships, finding ways to create value, all those kinds of things. And you really have to up your game on your personal development, right? You have to have a professional work ethic and kind of leave aside all your bullshit that might be holding you back. And I have to say that the entrepreneurial path is a great path to personal development. There's nothing else that's going to push you to level up quicker, to get better habits, to get a better workflow down, to become more professional in your networking and in the product that you deliver. All right, so to kind of sum up all of these tidbits of advice and tips and tricks around thinking about going to school for audio engineering and music production or not, I just want to kind of sum up some of the pros and cons that you can think about when you're making this decision. So some of the pros of going to school for something like music production, audio engineering, or whatever is that you have accountability, you have a built-in schedule or timeline for your learning, and you have the opportunity to gain tons of experience and network with other people in your industry. So if you're somebody who has trouble learning things on their own pace, or if you find solace in learning from a traditional structure in school, then it might be something to consider. However, some of the cons about going to school is, without a doubt, the cost. It is not cheap to go to school for audio engineering or music production. As I said, it can go up to $80,000, $50,000, $30,000, or $10,000 for a smaller program like I went to. That is not cheap. And if you weigh that against how much online courses cost and what value you could get from online courses for a fraction of that investment, it might not be worth it just on the cost alone. Another con about going to school is that it doesn't guarantee anything because, as I said in the beginning, nobody cares about your credentials. Nobody cares if you went to school. All that matters is your work ethic, your results, and your portfolio, right? And it's also who you know in this industry, right? So all of those things you can build without going to school. And if you go the way of going down your own entrepreneurial path, opening your own studio, becoming a music producer, building a brand around yourself as an artist, then you don't really need to go to school to start any of those things. You can just start now and start building those relationships, finding your craft, and getting a plan of action together for where you want to go in your career. And I have to say that some schools are crazy expensive. And I gotta be honest that even the school I went to did not equip me with all the necessary skills to actually make it in this industry. Okay, so it's not a foolproof solution. All right, so let's kind of sum up everything we talked about in this video, and I want to give you a few key tips to focus on regardless of your choice. So regardless if you decide to go this alone, or if you decide to do some independent study and enroll in some awesome online courses, or if you do decide to sign up for a more traditional school for music production or in audio engineering, number one is you want to learn and master your craft above all else. So if you do decide to go to school, if you take online courses, or if you just decide to teach yourself and learn by yourself, your number one focus should be to learn if you're just getting started, or master your craft if you've been at this for a while, because having a portfolio of awesome work is going to be the number one thing that influences your career. All right, the quality of the results you can produce is going to be directly tied to your success in this industry. Number two is focus on building relationships. So this is one of the pros of going to a more traditional school, but if you do go to school, make sure you are making the most out of it, okay? You want to be there first in the morning, you want to leave there last in the evening, and you want to network with everybody in your class. You want to know everyone in your class, you want to hang out with your teachers, you want to pick their brains, and you really want to focus on building relationships, because the music industry is a relationship business, okay? So you really want to focus on fostering relationships with other people who share similar visions as you, with other people in the industry, and people that you can build friendships with so that you guys can move forward together. This is super important and overlooked because a lot of us as artists, as music producers, audio engineers, we kind of like to be hermits. We kind of like to do our own thing in our studio, but we have to realize that everything in the music industry, whether it's getting gigs, finding clients, or building your brand, is all about developing relationships with other people who can work with you to achieve those goals. Third is you want to focus on gaining experience first and foremost, especially if you're just starting out. So you want to record your friends, you want to record bands, you want to get on any project possible. If you're an artist yourself or a musician, you want to record your own music, you want to get your own mixes done, and just get your hands on as many projects as possible and really start getting that hands-on experience, because taking action and putting your knowledge into action is the single most effective way to get better. Okay, you can learn everything under the sun, you can learn all the theory, but if you don't put it into action, you're not actually going to gain knowledge from your own experience, and you're not actually going to get that embodiment of the knowledge. So definitely focus on gaining experience in your craft. And 4 is you want to build your skills as an entrepreneur, okay? So regardless if you want to build your own studio, run your own studio, if you want to freelance your services, if you want to build a brand around yourself as an artist, all of those things require business skills and require the mind of an entrepreneur. So I highly encourage you to start learning some of these skills. So like marketing, networking, how to build a brand, how to communicate effectively, how to run a business. All of these things are super important skills and will be necessary for you in your career as you move forward. And hey, if you're just getting started or just starting to build your career and you're interested in learning from an online course or learning from me, I encourage you to get my free 7-step workflow, which will help you produce your own music at home, which has a bunch of baked in recording and mixing tips that I've learned over the years baked in. It's super handy to have around your studio. And if you're interested in going farther with me, there'll be an opportunity to do so once you get that free download. And obviously I'm biased. I'm offering some online training, of course, but I have benefited greatly from many online courses, and my online course is my own experience and my own knowledge kind of condensed into the most efficient way that I could think of to help you move forward in your path. So if you're interested, grab that free PDF guide below. And that wraps it up for this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay in the loop for my weekly videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let me know, have you gone to school for music production or audio engineering? Are you thinking about it? Have you learned anything from online courses, or have you learned everything you know from tutorials and your own experience? Let me know below. I'd love to continue the conversation down there, and we'll see you in the next video.